Motorists have in the last few months been paying more than ever for fuel, with prices hitting record levels of over 20 Rand for both 95 and 93 unleaded petrol in December. Today, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy announced a much-needed decrease in the fuel price. I'm now joined by Leighton Beard, the Automobile Association of South Africa's spokesperson. Leighton, thank you so much for your time. As always, we don't often get to speak about good news when it comes to your field of expertise, but this really is good news. I mean, it wasn't so long ago where everybody was just, their heads were in their hands, not knowing where the price of petrol was going to go and how we were going to get from point A to point B as we headed into the new year. What is behind this decrease?
No, I mean, it certainly is good news. You know, the oil price has flattened out. The Rand has strengthened against the US dollar. Both of those factors have obviously contributed very positively to the decreases that we are seeing across the board. Petrol's coming down, diesel's coming down, illuminating paraffin, I think significantly is coming down by quite a big margin, which is good. But I think we mustn't lose sight of the fact, Marcel, that we're still going to have very high fuel prices. 19 Rand a litre plus in most areas, 18 Rand a litre plus in coastal areas. It's still a lot of money for a litre of petrol. And I think the AA warned when the price did hit the record levels in November and December, that when the price comes down, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the price is still going to be high. And I think we are still seeing that. Let's not forget, the price came down in January 2021 as well. And we all know what happened with the fuel price after that. I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen again. But what I do think we need to be very cognizant of is the fact that we as the AA have called for a review of the fuel price. And we maintain that review still needs to happen. We're still at very high levels with the fuel price, and a decrease, welcome as it is, does not signal that we are at the end of the road in terms of these high levels of fuel prices.
The fuel price structure story is not going away anytime soon, and it really shouldn't. Where's your organisation standing at the moment in terms of trying to get this message across to government and to the officers that need to hear it most?
Yeah, I mean, we basically are driving, excuse the pun, we're driving, you know, this movement to get the fuel price reviewed. It's one of many things that we are looking at from a consumer advocacy point of view. But, you know, because we are the champion of consumers in South Africa, we feel this is an incredibly important topic to deal with. So certainly we are very encouraged by the fact that the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, mentioned a couple of weeks ago the fact that he also felt that there was a need to relook at the fuel price. We are going to be watching his budget speech in February with very keen eyes. Hopefully something is said before then. What we'd like to see is obviously no increases to any of the existing levels in that budget speech, and also an indication of where that fuel review is going, whether it's going to get off the ground before the first or second quarter. So for us, that's very important, and naturally, we will be lobbying for that review to happen. At the end of the day, Marcel, we are paying very high rates for fuel in South Africa, and we know that high rates of fuel, large fuel prices, has an incredibly big knock-on effect on every aspect of our lives in South Africa, from transport, obviously, to fuel, to food, to everything else. And because of that, it's necessary that everybody in this country understands how that fuel price is comprised and has faith that all those components are calculated correctly. So we are not going to take the foot off that pedal, if I can continue that analogy, and we feel that it's very essential that this review happens. So yes, we'll be very encouraged by the fact that the Minister has said that he also agrees with that point of view, and we'll wait to see how this all unfolds in the next couple of weeks.
I wanted to ask you about the need for consumer education. Do you think that there is enough known? Do you think the average person who uses public transport or has one vehicle in their family understands how much of the cost of petrol is actually made up by these fuel levies? And if we had better consumer education around that, do you think it would be easier to get government's attention?
It's a very important and a very loaded question, both at the same time. It's an important question, and I do think that there are many South Africans that do understand this. I think over the last 5 or so years, more people have come to realize exactly what goes into a litre of fuel and how the levies impact on that. So there certainly is a level of understanding for that, which is great. In terms of the education, definitely more is needed. We, as the AA, publish 2 fuel price notifications every month. In the past, we gave an outlook in the middle of the month, and then an outlook just before the official announcement was made. The Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has sadly censored that information from the AA, and we can no longer provide that service to the public of South Africa. It's something that we are still in discussions with in terms of trying to find a solution. But yes, I mean, there is a huge need for public education. There is a huge need for people to understand what's going into a litre of fuel. But more critically than that, Marcel, I think that people need to have faith and trust that what they are paying is the correct amount.
Yeah.
It's been audited, and it is what it is. And I think that faith and that trust can only be built if we do a review of the fuel price, and it's an open, transparent review, and there are people such as the AA that can give input into that process, and at the end of which people can say, this is what we pay, this is why we pay it, and we have faith in that process. We might not like it, but we understand it, and we have confidence that it's done correctly. I think that's the point that we'd like to end with.
That is very true, and it reminds me a few years ago, I think as way back as 2013, I happened to be in France and driving with a friend who's French, and we went under these gantries, which of course had just gone up in South Africa with our e-tolls, and he said, why are you South Africans so against the e-tolls and these gantries? The money goes into the system and social welfare, etc., etc., etc. And I was like, but that's just the thing. We don't know if that is where the money is going, and that really is very much the South African experience, and to the point that you were just making about the trust and the belief that those fuel levies are being used in the way that it should. Just finally, before I let you go, Leighton, you talk in the statement that you released today about us not forgetting that we still will be seeing the impact of COVID-19 on the price of fuel. You make a reference to Omicron. Explain to us what you're seeing or what you are expecting to happen as we still continue to battle this pandemic globally as well.
Yeah, and I think globally is the right context for that answer. You know, we're looking towards the Northern Hemisphere. Omicron is resulting in a lot of cases in the Northern Hemisphere. That may result in a delay in people going back to work. It may result in stricter lockdowns and curfews. And all of those things are going to have an impact on the demand for fuel. If there's less of a demand for fuel, that may impact on international oil prices. It may also, at some point, have an impact on the value of the rand against the dollar, which, you know, if it's higher, in our case, it's obviously more favorable. So there are a lot of variables that Omicron is bringing to the table. And it's something that we're going to need to see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks, Marcel. You know, we unfortunately can't give a prediction of what's going to happen week by week because of the volatility of both of the main key drivers, being the rand US dollar and the international oil price. It's something you have to monitor on a daily basis. We do think, though, that Omicron going forward, especially in the short to medium term, will have some sort of an impact. I think what we are looking for is exactly what that impact is going to be. So it's still early days in terms of what the fuel price is going to look like, you know, going into the next couple of months. But I think you'll have a clearer picture over the next couple of weeks in terms of how Omicron is exactly impacting on the work-life situation in the Northern Hemisphere.
Leighton Beard, it's always an education. Thank you so much. Leighton Beard is the Automobile Association of South Africa spokesperson. We thank him for his time this evening.